Okay, so ready to dive in. Today we're looking at something that's becoming more and more part of everyone's lives, and that's artificial intelligence, or AI for short.
AI.
Yeah, AI. But specifically, how it affects us as consumers.
Yeah.
So we've got this article here, The Rise of AI, Consumer Perspectives and Considerations, and we're going to really break it down.
Right.
So, what's in it for us? What do we need to watch out for? What are some, potential risks down the line? And most importantly, how do we as consumers kind of take control, right? Not just let it happen to us.
Right. Be informed.
Hmm.
Make informed decisions.
Exactly.
Not just, like, think about it. You already see this happening with, like recommendations you get on Spotify or Netflix.
Yeah.
But AI could take this to a whole new level, like way beyond just suggesting another song or movie,
Right.
and make it so that everything is tailored to your specific needs and preferences.
So what would that look like? Like, give me an example.
Sure. I mean, just imagine, like, your news feed, right? It's not just showing you articles about, general topics you're interested in, but it's actually anticipating the exact angle or even the author you'd prefer based on your entire reading history
Wow.
or, shopping online. Instead of scrolling through endless pages of clothes, the site knows your style so well that it only shows you things you'll actually love and want to buy.
Oh, that would be nice. Less scrolling, less analysis paralysis.
Exactly. And, it doesn't stop there. This level of personalization could extend to things like education, too. You could
Mm.
have learning materials specifically designed for the way you learn best. Yeah. So it really has the potential to revolutionize a lot of different areas of our lives.
So it's not just about convenience, it's also about like really getting what you want out of something.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, what else? I mean, there's got to be more, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The article also talks about how AI can make things more efficient and convenient.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, we're already seeing this, right, with chatbots and
Yeah.
stuff, like customer service.
Yeah, the chatbots.
You can get, pretty quick answers to your questions without having to wait on hold forever.
Yeah, right.
But this is just the beginning. They talk about this idea of tell everything, which
Yeah.
is kind of a mouthful. But it basically means doing more and more things remotely using technology.
Okay.
So, like, think about virtual doctor's appointments, online shopping that's even more streamlined than it is now, maybe even certain kinds of social interactions becoming easier and more convenient through AI.
Like, what kind of social interactions are we talking about?
Well, I mean, it could be anything from, like, scheduling meetups with friends to coordinating group projects.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about using AI to remove friction and make our lives easier.
Okay. So, I'm hearing a lot about like saving time, getting things done quicker, having things tailored to me. What about saving money? Like, is there any potential there?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things they highlight in the article. If businesses can use AI to automate tasks and optimize their operations, make things more efficient,
Yeah.
well, theoretically, those cost savings should get passed on to consumers, at least eventually, right?
Right. That's the hope. Lower prices.
Yeah.
Everybody's happy.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about personalization, convenience, and cost savings. What else is on the benefits list here?
Okay, so this one is really interesting. They talk about this idea of accessibility and democratization. And what they mean is that AI could make services that were once really expensive or only available to a select few much more widely available.
Okay, like what?
Like, imagine things like personalized career coaching or really sophisticated financial advice.
Okay.
Right now, those things can be super pricey, right?
Right.
But with AI, you could have access to those kinds of services no matter your income level.
That would be huge. I mean, that would really level the playing field.
Exactly. And that's where the democratization part comes in.
Right.
It's about making opportunities and resources available to everyone, not just the privileged few.
But I mean, is that realistic? Like, will everyone really have access to this stuff? Or will it just be, people who are already tech savvy?
Well, that's a really important question.
Right.
And it's something the article touches on, too. There's definitely a risk that AI could actually widen the gap between those who have access to technology and those who don't.
Right.
So it's not just about developing the AI itself. It's also about making sure everyone has the skills and resources to use it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So digital literacy is going to be like super important.
Well, absolutely. More important than ever.
Okay. So we've got this potential for greater access, but we need to make sure everyone's on board, so to speak.
Exactly. It has to be inclusive, right?
Right. Okay. So what about healthcare? I mean, I feel like that's one area where people are really excited about the potential of AI.
Yeah, for sure. And the article goes into some detail about that. Like, they talk about how AI could help with things like drug discovery,
Okay.
developing more targeted therapies, personalized medicine,
Right.
and even improving the accuracy of diagnoses.
Wow.
And then, of course, there's the whole telemedicine thing we talked about earlier.
Right.
That could really change how people access healthcare, especially in rural areas or for people who have difficulty getting to a doctor's office.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just like video chat with a doctor and get a diagnosis, that would be amazing.
Right.
Especially if it was like really accurate because of AI or something.
Exactly. And that's kind of the point, right? AI can
Mhm.
analyze tons of medical data way faster and more thoroughly than a human can.
Right.
So it can spot patterns and make connections that a doctor might miss.
So potentially we're talking about like earlier detection of diseases,
Big news.
better treatments, maybe even cures for things that are incurable now.
It's definitely possible. I mean, we're still in the early stages of this, but the potential is huge.
Huge, yeah. Okay, so we've talked about personalization, convenience, affordability, greater access to services, and major improvements in healthcare. What else is there?
Okay, so this one's a little bit broader, but it's about smarter systems and infrastructure.
Okay.
So, like, imagine AI optimizing how we use resources in all sorts of areas,
Oh,
like
like,
nutrition. So,
Really?
like, making sure everyone has access to healthy food,
Yeah.
education, um, public health initiatives, even managing traffic flow in cities.
Oh, wow. So AI running the traffic lights.
Well, it could be part of it, yeah. I mean, it's about using AI to make complex systems work more efficiently.
Okay, I see. So less waste, less gridlock, everything just running smoother.
Right. And that could have a ripple effect on all sorts of things, like, lower prices for goods, better air quality, less stress for everyone.
That would be amazing. A city that's actually pleasant to live in.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So any other potential upsides to this AI revolution?
Well, one more thing the article mentions is, just generally making our digital experiences better.
Okay.
So, like, think about speech recognition, right?
Yeah,
Like making voice assistants actually understand what you're saying.
that would be nice.
Or facial recognition becoming more seamless and reliable,
Mm-hmm.
real-time language translation, even searching through videos becoming much more accurate and effective.
Okay, so more intuitive technology, less less frustration trying to figure out how things work.
Exactly. It's all about making technology work more naturally for us.
Okay, so that's a lot of potential benefits. I mean, personalized everything, more efficient systems, potential for cost savings, better healthcare, smarter cities. It's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
Yeah. But of course, it's not all sunshine and roses, right? There's got to be some downsides to all this.
Right. And the article doesn't shy away from those. In fact, they dedicate a whole section to potential challenges consumers need to be aware of.
Oh, okay. Well, let's hear it. What are some of the not so great things we might have to deal with?
Okay, well, one of the big ones they talk about is this idea of worsening economic inequality.
Okay. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
something I've heard people worry about.
Right. And it makes sense, right? I mean, if AI is all about automation and efficiency,
Right.
well, that could mean a lot of jobs being replaced by machines.
Right. And who's going to lose those jobs? Probably the people who are already struggling.
Exactly. And then, the people who are able to adapt to these changes, who have the skills to work with AI, they'll be the ones who benefit.
Right. So it could really create a bigger divide between the haves and the have-nots.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's a big one. What else?
Another one is the potential erosion of privacy and autonomy.
Okay. Yeah. That's another big concern.
Right. I mean, with all this data being collected about us,
Hmm.
by big tech companies and who knows who else,
Right.
and AI being used to analyze that data, to target us with ads or whatever,
Right. Right.
it really raises some questions about who controls that information and how it's being used.
Yeah. And whether we have any say in it at all.
Exactly.
Okay. So privacy, huge issue. What about misinformation? I mean, we're already dealing with that, but I feel like AI could make it even worse.
You're absolutely right. And the article talks about that too. They say that AI can be used to generate and spread false information much more easily and effectively than ever before.
Yeah.
So, like, think about deepfakes.
Deepfakes.
Videos that look totally real but are actually completely fake.
Right. And it's already hard enough to tell what's real and what's not online.
Exactly. And AI could make it almost impossible.
So how are we supposed to make informed decisions if we can't even trust what we're seeing and hearing?
Right. That's a really big question.
Okay, so misinformation, potentially even more of a problem thanks to AI. What else should we be worried about?
Okay, so this one might seem a little bit less serious, but it's something to think about.
Hmm.
The article talks about the potential for increased digital dependence and a sense of isolation.
Okay.
So, with all this convenience and personalization, we could end up spending even more time in front of screens and
Yeah.
less time interacting with real people in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, we're already kind of addicted to our phones as it is.
Right, and AI could make that addiction even worse.
Okay. So maybe less face-to-face time, less human connection.
Potentially.
Okay, so that's something to be mindful of. What else is on this list of challenges?
Well, one that they highlight is the potential for a lack of understanding and control.
Okay, yeah.
So as AI systems become more complex, it's going to be harder and harder for us to understand how they work and how they're making decisions.
Right. It's all kind of a black box.
Exactly. And that can be really unsettling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't understand how something works, how can we trust it?
Right. Or hold it accountable if something goes wrong.
Exactly.
Okay. So transparency is going to be a big issue. What about jobs? I mean, we talked about that earlier, but is there anything else to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, beyond the potential for job losses, which is a big concern, there's also the issue of needing to constantly learn new skills.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Because as AI takes over more and more tasks, the jobs that are left are going to require different skills than the jobs of today.
So we all need to be prepared to adapt and retrain ourselves.
Exactly. Lifelong learning is going to be essential.
Okay. So new challenges, new skills.
Yeah.
Got it. Anything else?
One more big one. They talk about the potential for bias and discrimination.
Okay.
So AI systems learn from data, right?
Yeah.
And if that data reflects existing biases in the society, well, then the AI is going to be biased too.
Right. It's going to perpetuate those biases.
Exactly. And that could lead to all sorts of unfair outcomes.
Okay. So that's a big one. We need to make sure these AI systems are being developed and trained in a way that's fair and unbiased.
Absolutely. It's a huge challenge, but it's something we have to get right.
Okay, so those are some pretty serious challenges. But the article doesn't stop there, does it?
No, it doesn't.
They actually go on to talk about some potential dangers that are even, well, scarier.
Yeah. I mean, they're not sugarcoating things.
No.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about here?
Okay, well, one of the biggest ones is surveillance
Yeah.
and the potential erosion of civil liberties.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big one.
Right. So, with AI-powered surveillance technologies like facial recognition becoming more and more widespread,
Mhm.
it raises some serious concerns about mass surveillance and the potential for governments or other entities to track our movements and activities.
Right, and that could have a chilling effect on free speech and political dissent.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a big one. What else is on this list of dangers?
Okay, so this one might sound a little bit like science fiction, but it's something a lot of experts are worried about.
Okay. Hit me.
The weaponization of AI.
Okay, so we're talking like killer robots.
Well, it could be that eventually,
Yeah.
but right now it's more about things like AI being used for cybercrime,
Okay.
hacking, launching really sophisticated attacks that are hard to defend against,
Right.
and also using AI to create and spread disinformation, like we were talking about earlier.
Right. So even more convincing deepfakes, propaganda that's really effective at manipulating people.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are some pretty scary possibilities. What else?
Okay, so this one's a little bit more subtle, but it's still really important.
Okay.
The article talks about manipulation and exploitation. So, we were talking about how AI can be used to personalize things for us.
Right.
Well, that
Mhm.
same technology can also be used to manipulate our behavior.
Okay, how so?
Well, like algorithms can be designed to exploit our psychological weaknesses, the
Mhm.
things that make us click on things or buy things.
Right, they figure out what makes us tick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they use that information to keep us hooked on their platforms or to get us to spend more money.
Okay, so it's like personalized persuasion, but not in a good way.
Exactly.
Okay, so manipulation, that's a big one. What else is on this list of dangers?
Okay, so this one's kind of related to the last one, but it's about a potential decrease in agency and autonomy.
Okay.
So as we rely more and more on AI to make decisions for us, what to watch, what to buy, where to go,
Right.
there's a risk that we start to lose our ability to make those decisions for ourselves.
Okay.
So we become less like, autonomous individuals and more like, I don't know. Well, maybe not robots, but definitely less in control of our own lives.
Okay, so loss of free will, basically.
In a way, yeah.
Okay. That's scary. What else?
Okay, so the article also talks about the potential for erosion of trust and social cohesion.
Okay. We were talking about that earlier too, right? With the misinformation and everything.
Right. But it goes beyond that. I mean, if we can't trust the information we're getting, if we're constantly being manipulated, if we're all living in these personalized filter bubbles,
Right.
well, that's going to make it really hard to have meaningful conversations and connect with people who are different from us.
Right. And that could lead to more division and polarization in society.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a big concern. Anything else?
One last thing, and this is like the worst case scenario.
Okay, lay out on me.
The article talks about the potential for a kind of technological dystopia.
Okay, so like full-on sci-fi nightmare.
Well, maybe not that extreme, but definitely not good. So, like, imagine a world where AI is used to exacerbate existing inequalities, where the rich and powerful use AI to control the rest of us.
Right, so like a surveillance state on steroids?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And they say this could lead to all sorts of problems like resource scarcity, social unrest, even conflict.
Wow. Okay, so those are some pretty dark possibilities, but thankfully the article doesn't just leave us with a sense of doom and gloom.
No, they definitely offer some solutions, some ways to navigate this whole AI thing in a positive way.
Okay, good, because I was starting to get a little bit depressed there.
Yeah.
So what do they suggest? How do we take control and make sure AI is used for good and not for evil?
Well, they start with the basics. They say it's absolutely essential for consumers to cultivate digital literacy and critical thinking skills.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, we need to understand how AI works, what it's good at, what it's not so good at.
Right.
And we need to be able to think critically about the information we're getting online, knowing that some of it might be generated or manipulated by AI.
Okay, so be skeptical, do our own research, don't believe everything we see. Okay, good advice. What else?
They also say it's really important to prioritize privacy and data security.
Okay, yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Right. So,
Yeah.
like, be really careful about what information you share online.
Right.
Read those privacy policies, even though they're super boring.
Right. And take steps to protect your data, like using strong passwords and encryption.
Exactly. And if you're not sure how to do that, there are tons of resources available online to help you.
Okay, cool. So protect our data, be mindful of what we share. What else?
Another big one is to demand transparency and explainability from AI systems.
Okay. Yeah.
So we need to push for more openness about how these systems work, especially in areas that directly affect our lives, like healthcare or finance.
Right.
We have a right to know how decisions are being made that could have a big impact on us.
Okay, so push for transparency, hold these companies accountable.
Exactly.
Okay, good. What else is on this list?
Okay, so this one's about being proactive. They say we need to support ethical AI development and regulation. So, like, support initiatives that are promoting fairness, accountability, and safety in AI,
Right.
and engage in discussions about responsible AI governance.
So, like, write to our elected officials, get involved in advocacy groups, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Make your voice heard.
Okay. So, be an active citizen, advocate for ethical AI. What else?
Okay, so this one's about being mindful of our own well-being.
Okay.
They say we need to be aware of the addictive potential of AI-driven platforms and how that can affect our mental and social health.
Right, that whole digital dependence thing we talked about earlier.
Exactly. So, like, set limits on your screen time, make sure you're getting enough sleep, spend time in nature, connect with real people.
Okay, so balance is key.
Right.
Don't let the technology take over your life.
Exactly.
Okay, good advice. What else?
Another one is to support diverse and reliable sources of information.
Okay, so like, don't just get your news from social media.
Right. Seek out trustworthy journalism, expert analysis, sources that have a track record of accuracy.
Okay, so be discerning, be critical of what you're reading and watching.
Exactly.
Okay, good advice. What else is on this list?
Okay, so this one might seem obvious,
Right.
but it's really important. They say we need to embrace continuous learning and adaptability
Okay.
because the world is changing so fast, with AI and everything else.
Right.
So we need to be willing to learn new things and adapt to new situations.
Okay, so be a lifelong learner, stay curious, don't be afraid to try new things.
Exactly.
Okay, pew. Anything else?
One last one. They say we need to advocate for social justice and equity in the context of AI.
Okay, yeah. That's a big one.
Right. So, like, support efforts to bridge the digital divide and make sure the benefits of AI are accessible to everyone, not just a select few.
Okay, so work towards a future where AI is used to make society more equitable, not less.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a lot to take in. But I think the main takeaway here is that, AI is a powerful tool
Absolutely.
and it can be used for good or for bad. And it's up to us as consumers to make sure it's used in a way that benefits everyone.
I agree. We have to be informed and engaged.
Right. We can't just sit back and let it happen to us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
Okay, so I guess the question is, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
What steps are you going to take to become a more informed and empowered consumer in this, increasingly AI-driven world?
What will you do? Think about it.
Yeah, think about it. And if you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to share them with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so that's it for this deep dive into the rise of AI, consumer perspectives, and considerations. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.